Our news is brought to you by Alive.
Believe in best.
The Hurricane Dorian coroner's inquest continues. Plus, health officials address concerns over a vaccination pause on New Providence. Welcome to Avenue News, and thank you for joining us. I'm Kyle Joaquim. Topping news tonight, a shocking scene on Jerome Avenue where police say several people were shot. Distraught residents of the Kemp Road community flocked to the scene of the homicide. Jillian Gray is there and has the story.
This bullet-ridden Acura tells the story of a heartbreaking tale that unfolded here today. We can report that 6 people were shot to death here on the intersection of Chesapeake and Jerome Avenue. If you look in the road, you can see where officers would have outlined where all of those bullets were. Now, the wrecker has just begun to take the car away, but those 6 victims would have been carted away earlier. Now, you can see on both Chesapeake Road and Jerome Avenue, residents have gathered and they are heartbroken at the scene that unfolded here today. Many of them say that they are friends and family members of the persons who would have lost their lives in the shooting incident today. Now, while details are still sketchy, as police officers have not officially given any details as yet, we can tell you that those 6 persons, they say, are males who were in that car, and they're going to give a live update at 8 p.m. tonight. You can stay tuned to our Facebook page for that and watch the full story unfold this evening at 11 in our next newscast. Reporting live from Jerome Avenue, I'm Jillian Gray.
A local restaurant is defending the controversial decision to make it mandatory for all employees to be vaccinated or face termination. Owners at Sushi Rokan says this is in the interest of their business and employees. However, some, including the labor director, don't see it that way. Here's Bertha McDermott.
June 30th is the deadline set by the owners of Sushi Rokan for all its employees to be inoculated, warning that failure to do so could result in repercussions or even termination. A notice to staff warns that those unwilling to be vaccinated on medical grounds must provide medical evidence to support the claim. It reads, in that event, management will endeavor to reassign you appropriately, although given the nature of the company's business, this may not be possible. Termination may then be inevitable. Unsupported or unjustified refusal to be vaccinated will result in the immediate termination of your employment. Since the news broke, many have criticized the decision, but part owner Michael Scott maintains it's necessary.
Yes, it may be an aggressive step, but it's a prudential step. I have not heard, apart from hysteria and paranoia, I have not heard one sensible objection leveled at what we're doing, not one.
The restaurant located in Old Fort Bay is jointly owned by Scott and his wife. According to the letter to staff, Sushi Rokan has a duty to provide and maintain a safe workplace. We are adopting this policy to safeguard the health of our employees and their families, our customers, and visitors and the community at large from COVID-19, which is reduced by vaccinations. But we also put the question to Labor Director John Pinder, who said employers have no right to force employees to be vaccinated. He even went as far as calling it illegal.
It is not mandatory for nobody to receive the vaccination, not mandatory. So no employer has a right to force an employee to receive the vaccine, okay? The government is clear on that.
But according to Pinder, Sushi Rokan isn't the only business considering this course of action. He said the department received reports of 3 other businesses seeking to make vaccination mandatory. However, Scott says he disagrees with Pinder's interpretation of the law.
I don't agree with his interpretation of the law. And secondly, if our businesses go under, he's not going to bail us out. So, quite frankly, we have to follow best practices, which are now internationally coming into play. I think that the objection and the outrage, such as it is, right, is misplaced, misconceived, and quite frankly, ridiculous.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Berthany McDermott.
An 86-year-old woman was washed out to sea after she refused to leave her home before Hurricane Dorian made its devastating landfall in Abaco, according to her nephew, who gave evidence at the Hurricane Dorian coroner's inquest today. Jared Higgs has more.
Testimony continued today with the nephew telling the court of his elderly aunt's fate during the storm. David Cornish says 86-year-old Medina Hepburn didn't want to relocate from her seafront Dundastown home as the storm was just hours away. Cornish, who lived with his aunt and niece, says he had no choice but to stay with her. The decision to stay would prove fatal, as Cornish testified that water from the sea rose and washed him out of the home. Along with his niece, he rode out the storm in a nearby vehicle that floated at the storm's mercy. During the passage of the eye, Cornish and others searched for Hepburn, but without luck. He says they searched for 6 days after the storm, and he eventually filed a missing person report. Despite providing a DNA sample, he hasn't been informed of any match. He says he believes his aunt, who didn't have any children, died after being taken out to sea by the storm. The second witness to give evidence was the son of a 46-year-old woman who is believed to have perished during the storm. Khalil Smith appeared in court via video link from Grand Bahama. He says he and his mother, Kathleen Smith, rode out the storm in Marsh Harbor in their apartment next to the coast. As conditions deteriorated, the roof of the building began to collapse. Smith says he and his mother sought shelter on an outside upstairs balcony, but that collapsed too. He says he found himself submerged in water and had to swim to a nearby boat to ride out the storm. He testified that his mother was a weak swimmer, and despite days of searching, even when he was thinking the worst, he never saw her again. He told the court that he provided a DNA sample after filing a missing person report, but no results have been reported to him. The inquest continues on Tuesday, April 20th. Reporting for our news, I'm Jared Higgs.
COVID-19 vaccinations began on Abaco today. Dozens of residents lined up in Green Turtle Key for their first dose of the AstraZeneca vaccine this morning. Clinic Administrator Velty Parker Carey said there were about 40 people registered at each of the vaccination centers.
In my area, it seems to be the younger folks rather than the older folks, because most of the older folks saying that, well, they don't have to go anywhere, or they don't need to travel, or they're looking at it that way, or they want to see the results later. Like my mother, for example, she says she's going to wait. But my stuff, I work in the healthcare facility, so I can't wait.
How old is your mom?
My mom is 83. She's going to be 84 in July.
Residents of Foxtown and Cooperstown also got the jab today. Bahamas Christian Network owner Silbert Mills took his live on Facebook.
That's it?
Yeah, I did the sound effect.
I didn't even feel that. I did not even feel that, ladies and gentlemen.
Dr. Deborah Fox from the Ministry of Health encouraged more Abaconians to take advantage of the vaccine rollout on that island this week.
Look, the people waiting.
Yes, I see that.
Are you impressed by this?
I am very impressed. And I do thank persons in Green Hill Key who have come forward in order to get their vaccine. This is a good, excellent show of the support or them believing that the vaccine will work. So I just thank you.
Well, amid a concern over a pause in the COVID-19 vaccine rollout here on New Providence, health officials today explained that the second dose for those who have already received their first jab of the AstraZeneca vaccine has already been secured.
The second dose will be available to those persons that have had their first dose. I just want to reiterate that.
According to EPI coordinator in the Ministry of Health, Nurse Ruth Bastian, there is no cause for concern for those who have already gotten their first dose of the vaccine, as their second is secured and waiting. Her comments came during a Facebook Live question and answer event where concerns were raised over plans to pause the vaccine rollout here in New Providence on Saturday for evaluation purposes.
Not so much of a pause, but we're now beginning to focus on the family islands, and so that is why the reduction in some of the sites in New Providence.
The Bahamas has received 53,600 doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine so far, with another 67,000 doses expected in country from the COVAX facility sometime next month. At last update on Sunday, over 15,000 doses had been administered. But with there being no clear sign of when the pandemic will end or when the virus will fade away, the government's Infectious Diseases Program Director, Dr. Nakia Forbes, says COVID-19 vaccination could become a regular, similar to the flu shot.
That changes every year. Scientists have to predict what will be the circulating strain. And so we change the flu vaccine a little bit every year to predict for that, to cover that strain. So COVID-19 is probably going to be like that. There are probably going to be vaccines that are changed a little bit, or booster vaccines to cover these emerging strains. And so it's highly probable that there's going to need to be booster doses of it.
It's no secret that there have been concerns over side effects of taking the vaccine, particularly concerns over blood clots. However, Forbes says in this case, one must consider the ratio.
Just keep in mind, COVID itself can cause blood clots, and it's far more likely to get blood clots from COVID. Say the chance of getting a clot from the vaccine is maybe one person out of, say, 1 million.
Some who have gotten their first dose have experienced symptoms like headaches, chills, and fever. The question was asked whether these same symptoms could reoccur after the second dose or whether they could be worse.
The second dose, you may be having a worse side effect profile than the first dose. You know why? Because your immune system was maybe a little bit primed in that.
There is more news on the way, but first, Greg Thompson is in studio with your first weather check. Hey, Greg.
Our first look at weather tonight is being brought to you by Ports International for all your medical supplies and your equipment needs. Warm evening outside our studios this evening. Temperatures in the mid-70s with just a few clouds, if any, out there. And those light southeasterly winds bringing in those warm temperatures, keeping our field-like temperature also in the mid-70s. Satellite view around the islands. Quiet again across the area. That high pressure remains in charge, keeping us with a southeast to southerly flow. That's bringing in just some patchy clouds, but the rain chances will remain nil for the rest of the evening and into tonight. That's your first look at weather. Your extended forecast is still to come.
All right, thanks, Greg. Still to come, the latest verbal match between the AG and PLP chairman. And later, a look at the PLP's Blue Economy Plan. Stay tuned.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
You're watching Our News. Welcome back. Attorney General Carl Bethel is defending the government's decision to develop an upscale subdivision for young professionals. While the opposition supported the resolution, that did not stop the AG and PLP Senator Dr. Michael Darville from getting into a brief shouting match during the debate. Here's Jasmine Brown.
The Attorney General was on the defense as he led debate on a resolution to allow for the development of a residential community in Western New Providence geared toward young professionals and the transfer of said land from the treasurer to the government for the sum of $10.
What could possibly be objectionable about that? But all we have heard from members opposite in the other place is nitpicking, criticism. Who is it discriminating against?
During debate on the resolution in the House of Assembly on Monday, Progressive Liberal Party Deputy Leader Chester Cooper called the development nothing more than electioneering.
What we are about today is and will be a total paradigm shift in the housing policy of governments going forward. It is a paradigm shift that recognizes the demographic changes, where more than 50% of the Bahamian population is under the age of 50.
The community will be comprised of 83 acres of land located north of John F. Kennedy Drive between Prospect Ridge and the Ministry of Public Works and will feature a clubhouse, pool, parks, and a preschool. There will be roughly 250 lots that will be sold for $40,000 on the low end and $50,000 on the high end. PLP Senator Dr. Michael Darville insisted there are still many unanswered questions about the development. Darville questioned if an environmental impact assessment had been completed. Here's what happened next.
I have no reason to lay anything here. We want to know. It hasn't been done yet. And when it's done, it'll be a public document. Thank you.
Thank you, because I was wondering if it was done, but I appreciate now that the Attorney General said it's not done. So that goes to tell me that you are in the infancy stage of what you're about to do. It's all window dressing. If it was done, you would have already presented the document.
Madam President, I really must.
Because you're talking about land.
On a point of order. On a point of order.
Let me finish.
Please, on a point of order.
I didn't disturb you.
The honourable member is making silly statements.
Meantime, Bethel said the government has already identified additional plots of land where similar initiatives are planned. He said one of those communities will be on 29 acres of land in the Stapleton Gardens community. Reporting for our news, I'm Jasmine Brown.
Well, the AG and PLP chairman, Fred Mitchell, also got into a heated back and forth in the Senate today. This time, the two senators butted heads after Mitchell criticized the government's handling of an ongoing case to lift an injunction for the demolition of shantytowns.
You need to control this madman who's going around talking about ethnic cleansing in the Bahamas. Yeah, why you don't get up and control him? We are talking about traitors.
But Mitchell didn't stop there.
You lost all the cases before. I never seen a fella just making money off the government or slackness.
Attorney Fred Smith, QC, who represents shantytown residents in an ongoing legal battle, has argued that the government's attempt to eliminate shantytowns in the Bahamas is nothing short of ethnic cleansing of Haitian ethnic communities. Bethel says Smith's comments have been adequately refuted as he accused Smith of using invective. Bethel also noted that the former PLP administration lost cases that cost the government large sums of money. Acknowledging that have been the case, Mitchell said Bethel has been studying failure.
AG's office has had to pay millions of dollars, which the former government lost to the same man.
I agree with you.
Start with the Save the Bays case. Over $1 million in legal costs.
You have studied failure and you continue to fail.
No, I've been burdened with the failures of the PLP government.
Studied failure and you continue to fail.
No, I have been burdened by your failures.
You're a good study, a very smart study in failure. Can't win a case. Can't win one case.
When our news returns, the PLP outlines its Blue Economy plan. Plus, the UB Mingos track team competes locally. The details after this.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining us. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
In order for the economy to thrive, it must diversify, according to PLP leader Philip Davis, who today presented his plan for a blue economy to the LJM Maritime School. While encouraging and reassuring students of an expanded maritime field, Davis said protecting the Bahamas' marine environment is key to the country's continued growth.
Growing this sector must first start with the protection of our waters and the marine life in them. And so we will continue to strengthen the Royal Bahamas Defense Forces capacity to protect our borders, defend our sovereignty, and preserve our economic inheritance.
Expanding the renewable energies industry and safely finding ways to develop more marine industries will be staples in the PLP's Blue Economy plan. Davis says it is marine biotechnology, aquaculture, and deep sea exploration that the Bahamas should be developing.
The PLP will focus on investments on the development of renewable energy industries. We will join the global movement and encourage the latest technologies to take advantage of solar, wind, and wave power generation facilities.
And tonight in sports, a big night for Jazz Chisholm and the Miami Marlins. Marcellus Hall has the highlights.
Thanks a lot, Christina. Welcome to our sports on a Thursday, everybody. I'm Marcellus Hall. There's certainly an appreciation for the sweet sounds of jazz around Major League Baseball these days. And we're not talking about jazz music, although that may be the case. We're talking about Jazz Chisholm, the Bahamian who has taken the Miami Marlins by storm. They were in action yesterday against my Atlanta Braves. And let's take a look and see exactly how this one turned out. Jazz Chisholm and the Florida Marlins continuing their 4-game set with the Atlanta Braves last night, taking into the top of the third. Jazz already with a single to his credit at the plate with Jesus Aguilar and Starling Marte on base. Chisholm blasting this one to deep center field, a 3-run homer that put the Marlins up 5-0 early on. Braves would come back behind 2 home runs from Ronald Acuna Jr. They tied the game at 5. To extra innings we go for the second straight night. Marlins would score 1 in the top of the 10th. Braves unable to answer. Jazz and the Marlins get the 6-5 win. They look to complete the sweep when the series continues today. University of Bahamas Mingos fielding a 2-member team over the weekend at the DTSP track meet. As most of the team finished off their season, sprinter Paige Stewart She was 12th overall in the under-20 girls 200-meter event. Her time, 13.75 seconds. Now in the men's 400 meters, much better results here. Edward Gale finished 3rd overall in 53.32 seconds. He's been nursing an injury for most of the season. Head coach Edna Roll says some of the Mingos still will be working on participating in events this summer.
Season is over. However, we have Paige who still have an opportunity to try and qualify for the Rifter for the under-20 division. I'm going to continue to work with her to try to get her to bring those times down to get to qualifying standard. Kendrick is in a good position now. He stands now at 2nd in the world with the rankings for the decathlon. He needs to be in the top 24 to guarantee a spot on the Olympic team. So, we're looking to try to get Kendrick in some meets this summer so we can either better his performance to keep a good standing or try to get him to at least to get into the decathlon, to better his form, or just get him to meets to keep him sharp so when he do perform for the decathlon.
And there it is, your check on sports for you this Thursday. I'm Marcellus Hall. Back to you, Christina.
This is Kyle, not Christina, but Greg is back in the Weather Center with the extended forecast that's coming up when Our News returns.
Welcome to our news and thanks for joining. Topping news tonight.
COVID-19 remains a serious threat.
Coronavirus COVID-19 has disrupted our economy, tourism industry, educational system, and put our healthcare facilities and professionals on high alert. Are you prepared? Do you have all the facts? Stay tuned to this network for the very latest news and information on this global pandemic.
You're watching Our News. Welcome back. Well, it's almost the weekend, and Greg is back in the Weather Center with the extended forecast.
In our second look at weather, we take a look at our satellite view around the area. Of course, that high pressure remains in charge, keeping us with mostly blue skies and dry and stable conditions. Winds are very light. The high is expected to move off towards the east, but that high will keep all storm systems well to the north of us. There's another one across northern Florida. That should race towards the east and north of the Bahamas over the weekend. But the high pressure system will allow our temperatures to warm up as well into the weekend. Boating forecast for the northwest Bahamas tonight through tomorrow. Southwest winds at 10 to 15 knots. Seas will be running 2 to 4 feet over the ocean. While in the central and southeastern islands, we have a southeasterly flow at 10 knots. Seas will be running 1 to 3 feet over the ocean. High tide will be at 11:03 tonight. Here's a look now at your national forecast. A look now at your extended forecast through Tuesday. That's a look at our weather. Make it a safe Thursday night, everybody.
Up next is your RF Market Watch.
It's now time for tonight's Financial Market Minute, brought to you by RF, your local investment bank. This has been your Financial Market Minute. To explore the best performing mutual funds in the Bahamas, visit our website at www.rfgroup.com.
Well, thank you for joining us for Our News tonight. On behalf of the entire team, I'm Kyle Joaquin. We will see you right back here tomorrow night, but we now invite you to tune in to the Our News Bahamas Facebook page, where we will go live from police headquarters for a press conference. Have a good evening, Bahamas.